Hi, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started with the webinar shortly, just giving our live audience a moment to get logged on here. In the meantime, if you are joining us live, please let us know where you are located in the event comments, your city and your state, or your city and country if outside the US. We'll get kicked off here soon. Hello and welcome to Make the Most of Your Current Job, brought to you by Indeed's Job Search Academy. My name is Brighid Power, and I will be your host for today's webinar. I'm a career strategist with Indeed's Job Search Academy, and I am joined by a whole team of folks helping me in the background here from Indeed, including Clint Carnes, who is producing our webinar. We have Mark Stevens, who's monitoring the LinkedIn chat, and our Indeed YouTube team is moderating the YouTube live experience. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to be joined shortly by a panel of guests, including Nicole Smith, who is an executive coach and founder of Smitn Coaching, and Holly Thompson, who's a career coach and the global operations onboarding lead here at Indeed. So I'm excited to greet them shortly. Your current job is your stepping stone to future opportunities. So our panel discussion is going to dive into strategies to make the most of your current role. We are going to save some time for Q&A throughout to address questions from our live audience. So please add your questions to the comments at any time if you're joining us live. But before we dive into our discussion, just want to cover a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, we created a handout that you can download and use to take notes during the webinar with a ton of links to additional resources as well. You can use the QR code on the screen or the URL for the handout. We're going to share the link in the comments for you to copy paste into your browser as well. And a couple additional items. First and foremost, we are live streaming today on LinkedIn and YouTube. Again, if you're joining us live, we ask that you submit your questions in the comments throughout the webinar so we can answer audience questions live when we get to Q&A at the end. Second, answers will be targeted to the US market. We welcome our international audiences, of course, and a lot of the advice that we share here today can help any worker regardless of location. But do please keep in mind that we're going to use that US job market lens. And because we don't have legal expertise, we're not going to field questions about transitioning to US employment for international job seekers in particular. Next, we're going to share some links throughout the webinar as URLs. Go ahead and copy and paste those URLs into your browser, or you can use the participant handout to access them as well. Please do be respectful of today's panelists and, of course, of your fellow attendees. We strive to create a welcome and open forum for discussing career advice, and your support for this environment is truly appreciated. Next, this is a public forum, so please don't share any personal identifiable information beyond just your name and your location in the comments there. So no resumes, ID cards, passports, or anything like that should be shared. Next, we often get the question, is this session being recorded? And the answer is yes. The recording of this webinar will be available directly after the session concludes at the same URL that you used to access it on LinkedIn or YouTube. And within the next couple of weeks, we'll also post it to our Job Search Academy workshops page that has the recordings of our other workshops and webinars for you to check out as well. Couple of final important disclaimers. First, this webinar is for informational purposes only. Any information or advice that we share here should not be taken as personalized counsel. And second, advice and opinions expressed by panelists here today are their own and don't necessarily reflect the personal views of Indeed. So that is it for housekeeping. Next, I'm so excited to welcome our panel today, and I'm going to start with Nicole Smith. Nicole, hi. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Nicole. Nicole is an executive coach and the founder of Smitn, where she helps professionals define and execute their own versions of success. Nicole's a former CMO turned coach and partners with leaders to navigate career decisions, set boundaries, and build careers that feel as good as they look. With experience at every level, from intern to corporate executive, Nicole understands the challenges of thriving in the workplace and is passionate about helping others make the most of where they are and where they want to go. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
And next up, we have Holly Thompson, who is a career coach with nearly 7 years of experience guiding job seekers from diverse backgrounds at various stages of their careers. And Holly's own journey through career transitions and job search challenges inspires her commitment to helping others achieve professional goals. Holly currently serves as the Global Onboarding Operations Lead right here at Indeed, where she manages a comprehensive range of activities, including background checks, new hire training resources, and onboarding sessions for new hires across the Americas. So happy to have you here today, too, Holly.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
All right. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. And first, I want to talk about really this mindset shift to kick us off. So, human beings are naturally wired to think about the future, which is totally a blessing and a curse, right? While we have this amazing capacity to dream of a brighter future, if we get too focused on what's coming down the pipeline, it can actually take away from our present experience. So, this is a huge challenge, specifically when it comes to careers. When we know that the role that we're in is maybe not our forever job, it can create a sense of impatience or frustration to move on to a new or better thing. Many of our folks tuning in today are probably in a role that you foresee being in for a little while, whether you like it or not. Some of you might be actively seeking a promotion or a raise, and others might be looking for a new job entirely. But in the meantime, you're still showing up at work day after day. So that can create some conflicts. No matter what your story is, if you're joining us today, our focus is not going to be that what's next question, but rather, how can you make the most of what you're doing now and make it work for you? So I want to kick off today's panel with a question. How can workers survive, or better yet, thrive in their day-to-day work when they know that their current job isn't their end goal? Nicole, I'd love to start with you on this one.
Okay, I'm happy to start, and I'm happy we're starting with mindset because that's exactly where I start with my coaching clients. Because you're going to find that when you're in the right frame of mind, knowing what to do and feeling confident that you're doing the right things just becomes that much easier. So you're right, it could take a while to find a job, or you might know that you're going to be sitting in this seat for a bit. So just know that that time frame comes along with whatever you're choosing, right? And so right now, if you're thinking about what's next, you could be thinking about, well, will I be chosen for this job? And what I want you to really kind of reset on is that you always have choices. So you may not choose how long you're going to be in this seat, but you always have a choice of how you choose to wait. So what are you going to do during this wait? So I recommend 3 or 4 things. One is just to remember that you can choose acceptance over resistance, right? So you could every day lament about, oh, this is taking so long, I'm going to have to be here forever. Or you can choose to say, you know what, I'm here, let me make the most of it. That's the simplest and best mindset change you could make. The other one is sometimes we're really clear on what we don't want. I'm going to suggest getting super clear on what you do want. As a wise woman once said to me, it's not, we're all pretty clear on what we're running from, but we're not always the most clear on what we're running to. I want you to focus on what are you running to? Craft that vision. Know exactly what you want. Know why you want it. Those are very important things. The other thing is choose to focus on what you have. What do you have right now? Do an inventory of skills, resources, particularly an inventory of your strengths. What elements of the future that you want exist right now, and how can you curate and amplify those exactly where you are? And at the risk of sounding like a flight attendant, it's like, this is your preparation for like departure and takeoff, right? So this is a really great preparation time. And if you think of it that way, it can make it a lot more fulfilling and feel a lot more purposeful, even if you are staying in the same place and not moving to what's next just yet.
I love that. And you know what? Flight attendants have a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of things that we'll quote them on. So I love you bringing that in, and kind of makes me think about a current opportunity. When you were saying, making the most of the wait, I almost envisioned this waiting room, right? You're waiting to go into some kind of appointment. You could either be there fuming about how long it's taking, or maybe you could be checking your email or catching up with a friend on the phone, right? So I love those perspectives you brought in already, nuggets of wisdom, just a couple minutes in. Holly, what would you add here? How can people really make the most of the present?
Yeah, well, at first I want to call out what Nicole said about, we can focus a lot on what we don't want. And like if you have a bad day at work, it's just like, oh, I hate this. And we don't necessarily have that goal of what we're going toward. And in that mindset frame, again, it's easy to say, oh, I'm gonna quit my job or whatever. It's trying to figure out like, is the desire to stay greater than the desire to change? And so figuring that out for yourself of what is greater and getting a perspective of what I have now and the unknown as well. So trying to figure out, again, weighing which one is more important to me. And that's usually what is a driving force to actually make that change.
Mm.
Um, and of course, you also have to do what is best for you. I know sometimes, especially if we're working in like uh, a role where you're serving other people and you feel like you owe it to them to stay, because I used to be a teacher, and so like, oh, I'm working with students, and like I owe so much to them, and it makes it really difficult to leave. And companies can be that way too. And so it's trying to figure out what is also best for you, not what you owe to a particular company, because the company is going to do what's best for them, and you need to do what's best for you. So while you're trying to figure out exactly what it is what you're wanting to do, whether that's stay or move on, there are some things that I do recommend. Um, and this can be a little bit uncomfortable, but saying yes to more things. I know, especially when we're like, I don't know if I want to be here anymore. It's easier to just say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take on anything new. But sometimes it can like reignite a spark if you are working cross-functionally, working with a different team and offering your skills and expertise to a different part of your company. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now because I work in onboarding. And so this is such a cool opportunity to get to work with other people. And I got to meet Nicole and I'm working with Brighid and Clint. And like, it's such a cool experience. And I get to reach a lot of job seekers and connect with more people. And I find that really fulfilling. And so it, again, kind of reignites the spark and reminds me of all the cool things that my company does offer. So, so those are some things to do also. And recognizing all of your skills, you might become a mentor, or you might get a mentor and start acquiring new skills. So I recently did that this year. I got a mentor this year who's in a completely different area of Indeed, and I'm learning so much from him. And volunteering, we have a lot of opportunities to volunteer. And if your company doesn't offer that, you can even check out things like Volunteer Match or Catch a Fire. Those are excellent because you get to put in what skills you have, and they'll match you up with something. It could be something simple as like data entry. But there's a lot of things that you can do to help build connections and build confidence. Even start talking more in meetings if that's something that you're not used to doing. What is it? Vanessa Van Edwards, I think. She's, if you're not familiar, she's the one who talks about overcoming being like an awkward person. And so even doing like little things can go a really long way. So I know I've like kind of yammered on a bunch of different things that you can do. Nicole, what else do you think about things you can do?
Yeah, I listening to you, it's like great. It's like, yeah, if you have the capacity to take on more, then yeah. And I know we'll probably get to more like tactical and specifics that go moving forward, but it's like, yeah, just evaluate. Like, what is your capacity right now? Because if you do have capacity to take on more, why not use this time to do things that are helpful? Right? Like you can help yourself. You're not helpless in this situation. You're not waiting to be chosen. You're not waiting for the time to pass. You can be an active participant in writing your story. And what I like to tell people is that, your future starts right now. It's all one story. It's all your story. So you got to finish this chapter before you write the next one. And there's still time to figure out what this chapter is going to be for you.
I love that. And I'm so glad that we started here too, right? Because of course we will get into more tactical stuff and how to position yourself and how to make a career shift, right? But starting with you and what your wants and needs are, and really more so, where is your energy? How can you boost your energy in the present moment to help you have the capacity to do things that are beyond yourself or do things that are more future oriented is such a critical place to begin, both in mindset as well as Holly, like you're talking about, just the things that you're spending your day to day doing where you have control over those can be a way to really give yourself that boost that you need to be able to then think into the future. Um, with that being said, I really love this discussion too, because it reminds me of the concept, like the psychology concept of the locus of control. An external locus of control essentially means that you see your whole life as being run by outside circumstances, right? And at work, this can be things like maybe subconsciously believing that your job and your company has total control over you and your happiness and your well being. And what we're really talking about is kind of shifting to that internal locus of control. What is it that I can take the reins to do to make changes about when my external circumstances aren't exactly what I want or need them to be? So let's move into talking a little bit about those action plans then. What are some specific actions? How you started on this a little bit, but what are some specific ways that workers can make positive changes in their work lives right now? Maybe specifically with this lens of using their current job as a stepping stone for future opportunities and getting to where they want to be in the future. I'd love to continue with you, Holly, here.
Yeah, I know I've already talked about a few of those things, like getting a mentor at your current position, working cross-functionally. So I do a lot of facilitation because I lead new hire onboarding. And so I'm working with the learning and development team now to this new project that we're working on, and she needs additional facilitators, and she doesn't have enough. And so I was like, well, I can do that. And so now it's like opened up a whole new world of my company of a bunch of people that I didn't know before. And so those connections are fantastic. And we don't know what those new connections are going to lead to. And it's always, I don't know, I always enjoy meeting new people and learning about what is it that you're doing? What do you find fulfilling? And just having those conversations and building connections. Again, that's something that I find fulfilling. And with those connections, that usually tends to open up doors, maybe not right away, but possibly in the future. Another thing, we have business resource groups. Some companies have employee resource groups or different types of like affinity groups. I like to go bike riding, and so we have some cycling groups within Indeed. And so sometimes I go there, and I've met people on the UX team, and so I'm learning more about UI and UX and things that I'd never, user experience and things that I don't know anything about. So learning other people's stories and their career journeys. Again, those are some things that I think are really helpful to do to, again, find some more fulfillment in your current position and, again, possibly open some doors.
Yeah, that's great. And we are so glad that you do have that tendency, Holly, to kind of extend and explore, because otherwise we wouldn't be here with you today. So thanks for doing that exploration and sharing that journey as well. Before we jump to Nicole, I wanted to remind folks who are joining us live, if our conversation is sparking any questions for you, feel free to join that or add them into the comments. We'll save the last 10 or 15 minutes of today's program for your most pressing questions, so keep those coming. Nicole, what would you add here? What are some ways to really use the present to set yourself up for what that future step looks like?
Yeah, so yes to everything Holly said, like getting involved, increasing your connections, increasing your visibility. Those are all really great things. For this, I want you to really think about using what we talked about just a few minutes ago, that vision you have for your future, that thing you do want, and use that as a filter for the opportunities and projects that might be in front of you. It's kind of like when you're shopping. If you don't know what you're looking for, it just looks like a bunch of stuff. But if you do know what you're looking for, you can laser in. If you're looking for a white shirt, you can automatically like gravitate to the places that are going to have the white shirt, right? So look for things and opportunities that fit what your future might look like. Are there skills or connections that you think you might need to be a better candidate or to move yourself forward? Look for those opportunities. Are there things that you just really enjoy? Because that's okay too. Like just to do things that feel good to you. I love that Holly talked about her cycling club. I don't cycle outside. I'm more of a Peloton girl, but I totally get it, right? So look for those things, because to your point earlier, Brighid, about your energy, about your fulfillment, if you have to show up and be in this space, then do something that feels good to you. Also, if there's something you want to learn that makes you either a better person or a better future candidate, learn it. And what better place to learn it than when you're getting paid for it, right? So if there's a department that does what you want to do, how can you get involved? If there is a learning opportunity through your learning and development group, is there a way to get involved there? This is particularly true if you're looking to improve your leadership. There's a lot of leadership development that happens within organizations. And if you have one with a structured program, seek that out, seek how you can be a part of it. If you don't have a structured program, maybe look into if they offer external trainings or coaching, and then you can seek out a coach. We're not hard to find. Seek out a coach and see if they sponsor or subsidize that or reimburse for it, or it may be something you want to invest in for yourself. So ask for those professional development opportunities. Look for projects that stretch you, give you new skills, give you something that might just even stretch your brain a little bit, because that'll feel great. And here's another thing that I just want to make sure I get in here is this is a perfect time to start thinking about your personal brand. And essentially all your personal brand is how you want to be seen and what you want to be known for. And a lot of people get really tangled up with their companies. So their company becomes their brand. And so, especially if you're thinking about in the future, maybe this job is not forever. And let's be honest, no job is. Either you're going to leave or they're going to leave you. One of those things is going to happen. This is an awesome time for you to think about, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to be aligned with? And start to develop that for yourself. So if you're in that phase of like, how do I get the most out of this job? Using it as a platform to build your visibility and personal brand is another great thing to be doing during this time.
That's
Yeah,
I
so oh,
oh,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead, Holly. Yeah, please jump in.
No, I was just gonna say I love all of that, like, building your own brand and not attaching it to a particular company, because that's such an easy thing to do, especially when they send you swag and then you're like, because again, Indeed, they send us stuff and I wear my Indeed shirt. So it's you definitely separating yourself from your company. So I really love that you pointed that out. Something else that you were talking about in upskilling and like acquiring new skills. I know it can be difficult. I know a lot of things we're talking about require you to be more outgoing. And so for those who are a little bit more introverted or just like a little bit unsure about what you're looking for, if there are particular skills that you have identified, like, I want to learn more about this, then I'm sure you might be aware that there are loads of places online where you can take those courses at your own pace, whether it's Coursera or Udemy, whatever it may be. And it's kind of a safer place to start exploring those skills quietly if you're not quite ready to make that leap of, yeah, this is what I want to do. So it's a great way to explore different types of things that maybe you're not sure you're totally sold on yet. Like I took a data storytelling course on Udemy, and it's really cool, but I don't know that it's necessarily something that I'm ready to throw myself into yet. But again, it gives you a safe, kind of quiet place to explore those new skills that you might be interested in.
Yeah, shout out to the introverts. That's me. I'm part of the crew. Yeah, everybody's like hand raised. Yeah, sometimes like, you don't have to jump into like a large group or do something drastic, like just really intimate conversations, inviting people to coffee, inviting people to lunch, a quick little Zoom call, a coffee chat, something like that can just create a new connection where you may never know what it leads to. And yeah, finding classes online. Listen, there is no shortage of places to get information and to learn things. The thing I would say is that, just be thoughtful about the consumption of information without the application or implementation of it. Look for opportunities to use it too. And so if you can add value by doing that or support someone by doing that, it's even better.
So true. Yeah. And I know we will explicitly talk a little bit about those folks who are maybe actively job searching now. But even before we get there, I think something else that folks could be thinking about if you're trying to figure out, what type of skill do I want to prioritize building right now? It can actually really help, even if you're not looking for a job in the short term, just to get out there and look at job postings a little bit and think about what might be a step or two ahead of me. What career paths exist out there. And while you're doing that, if you see a job posting that speaks to you as something you might want to go for in the future, that can really be your to-do list of the types of skills you might prioritize, the types of people you speak with, the types of projects or departments that you interact with now, as a way to really build that story for where you're trying to head in the future. And of course, I will plug Indeed as a great place to look at job postings, since we are the largest job search platform out there. But this is something you can kind of be doing, on your own on the side, even if you're not actively searching, right? I'm going to pivot to our next question here. We've talked a little bit about kind of that personal work. I want to talk a little bit about those folks that maybe see opportunities for themselves within the organization that they're currently working in. So, one of the best ways that workers can make progress, or the quickest ways, is really thinking strategically about where you are now, the organization or company that you're starting with. And this could be in the form of, increased compensation, like a raise. It could be, advancing your role responsibilities, or, changing your job title in the form of a promotion. Or it could be shifting into a new position entirely within that company that you already work for, right? So, my question for you all is, what are some ways that workers can demonstrate that they're ready for that internal movement, that promotion, that raise? And then, what are actually the best ways to go forward and approach that conversation with a manager, or more formally internally? Nicole, can you kick us off here?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I just want to say, like, from my experience, especially working with clients who may have come in and their first thought is like, oh, I want to get out of here. And we work on some of these things that we're talking about and like a personalized plan for them. Like, don't be surprised if you do some of these things and you end up finding one, you're like, oh, I actually don't hate my job. I just kind of hated how I was doing it. Or two, you find an internal job. I know plenty of people who have been in companies for a long time, decades even, and people are like, you've never moved? And they're like, I didn't have to, because I was able to create a career within a career by moving departments and seeking out new opportunities. So don't overlook opportunities for promotion or movement within the org that you're in. And I would say, if you're thinking about this, one of the big things that people overlook is knowing the process and knowing who the decision makers are. So if you want a promotion, or you want to transfer, or you want to raise, one of the most important things that you can do is to understand how those decisions are made, because then that will allow you to learn what you need to know and what you need to present or do in order to get the outcome that you're looking for. Understand what's valued within the company, because what you might think is important and work you're really passionate about and love might not be the work that's valued and rewarded by your organization. So you have to be able to hopefully do both. Do the things that you really love and do things that will be visible enough and important enough that you can make a case that you deserve that promotion or raise. And I feel like those are the two things that people kind of skip. They go straight to what they want, but they don't look at the full ecosystem and the landscape that would set you up for success. I would say, and then once you have that information, I recommend being intentional and direct, saying to your supervisor or people who have the power to make this change for you, to say, hey, you know what? I am interested in a promotion. I'm interested in transferring to this other division. Can we have a conversation about that? And also scheduling that time, being intentional about that time. Don't wait till you're like in a one-on-one, maybe at the end, and just throwing it out there. So it's like a scramble, or maybe there's not enough time to discuss it, or you're not prepared, or the person you're having a conversation with isn't prepared. Make sure that you actually have time to prepare for that meeting. And then beyond that, I think the last thing I'll say on this is be open to feedback, because you may be ready for that promotion, or you may be ready for that raise, but maybe that promotion or raise isn't ready for you. And there may be feedback that you're given. And I know some people struggle with this. I've said it to clients and I get the eye roll. It's fine. That feedback can be a gift, but it depends on how you take it and how you wrap it, right? So make sure that you understand the feedback. Ask for clarity if you need it. Like, what did you mean by that? Could you define that for me? Can I get an example of that? These are all perfectly fine questions to ask for your clarity. Curiosity is your best friend in this. And then use that feedback once again to pave your path moving forward. It doesn't have to be a setback. It can be a step forward if you handle it correctly. Yeah, and then of course, I'm always going to say this, ask for professional development or coaching if there are gaps. If there's gaps that you don't feel that you can bridge yourself, or that you don't know how to bridge, ask for resources to help and support you. Support is one of the most important things, and everybody needs it.
Man, I wish I was taking notes. Like, Nicole, you just hit on so many amazing things. Then, like, seriously, like, I was like, yes, 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 to like every single point. And I love what you're saying about like knowing what the process is before you even go into it. So that way you know what you're dealing with. You know the framework of like, how do things work in your company? How do these promotions even work? And how long do I have to wait? What kind of business cases do I even have to build before you even have that conversation? So I love that you mentioned that, and a strategy of even talking with your manager about it, and not having like that doorknob confession at the end of your meeting, like, oh yeah, I want this, bye, kind of a thing. So like, yeah, but it's kind of comfortable for us to do at the end of a meeting. It's more comfortable for us. And so I love that you called that out. So yes, to all of those things. Something else I want to add on to it is the like why. Why do you want a promotion? Because if you're not really sure, it's just like, well, I want one, I want more money. I mean, who doesn't? So like uh thinking about thinking about your why, because if you don't know what it is, how are you supposed to communicate that to your manager and like skip level managers or whomever? So how are you um going to get that if you can't tell them why? Like, why is it that you want this promotion? Why do you want more responsibilities? Where is your career going? So that's something I think to consider, as well as what are you keeping track of your accomplishments? Do you know what you have achieved in the current role that you have that demonstrates that you're ready to go up to that next level? Plus, I think if you're tracking your accomplishments, that's going to help boost your confidence. Be like, wow, look at all of the things I have done. Because we tend to get into our groove of our day to day, and we don't necessarily realize how much we have done and how much our accomplishments have helped the company. And so once you start tracking that and you see this trajectory of all of these things that you have done, you've already basically built your case for a promotion. Or maybe you're noticing, oh, I could do more. Or yeah, again, it just kind of depends on your particular situation. But I would say that those are a couple of things to really focus on are why do you want a promotion, and what have you done? What makes your case for you?
Yeah. Celebrate your wins all the time. Like, it's important, big or small, and keep track so that when these times come up, you're not scrambling to figure it out. So start tracking and celebrating now. It can be just a little notebook you keep on your desk that you just record your celebrations.
And let me just say, I am 100% in this club of like, let me just make this ask at the very end of a conversation that I'm having with my manager. Oh, there's only 30 seconds left. We'll save it for next week, next month, next quarter, right? So I love this idea of just being bold and being intentional about having these discussions and being clear. And to your point, being open to feedback, right? Because, the worst that can happen is just getting the no, we're not ready yet, right? And kind of moving that into a developmental conversation. I think that, we have a lot of tools actually and tricks and exercises that we shared in the Job Search Academy career management webinar of really how to
Mhm.
track your wins. And not just personally, but also to the point of personal branding. How can we broadcast those achievements over time with our networks internally and externally, keeping our resume updated, updating LinkedIn as we're doing certifications or taking on new responsibilities. So it doesn't have to be in the world of looking for a new role. It just makes it easier when we're having those conversations internally and externally. Mark and team, if you're able to share out the link to that webinar and that workshop, that would be really helpful. The other thing I wanted to add here is that oftentimes when we're looking to make moves in our career, whether internally or externally, it can naturally create feelings of imposter syndrome or feelings of, ooh, am I good enough for this yet? Right. But something to keep in mind, especially if you're thinking about making a move internally, is that the wisdom that you bring from having worked in this particular setting is something that can't be matched by a candidate that's external, right? Maybe even if they have a couple more skilled or years on you, they don't have that on the ground experience that you bring or that framework of that organization that you bring. And most companies would much prefer move someone internally because they have a track record of that person's experiences and they can really be a cheerleader. They're taking more of a risk when they hire an external candidate, right? So give yourself some credit, be your own cheerleader, and then also think about how does my internal experience really elevate me as an internal candidate, and how can I really speak to that in my approach as well?
Adding on to that, I know it can be difficult to be your own cheerleader. I am a little bit of a pessimist. I say that I'm a realist, but I'll be honest, I'm kind of a pessimist. And so it can be difficult for me to be my own cheerleader. And I think that's
Mhm.
why it's so helpful to have a mentor who can help reflect the things that you have done. One of the things that I am actually doing this week is that I'm meeting with my mentor and we are going over my resume. So that way I can practice what I preach and saying, like, keep your resume updated, because I'm not currently looking for a job, but like I want to have my resume ready. Like that's just a good practice. And I need to do the same with my LinkedIn. I haven't touched my LinkedIn in ages, but like it's one of those good things to practice doing. And again, having a mentor who's objective, and he's not even in my function. And so like going through and looking at these accomplishments, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I did that. And it was important. It was a thing. It's sometimes it's difficult to really give yourself that praise. And so I think it can be so helpful to have like a mentor, or depending on the relationship you have with your manager, maybe they can reflect that for you and say, hey, no, this actually was a really big deal. Like you made a big impact. Because yeah, sometimes we just get down on ourselves. We're like, yeah, I did my job. Things happened. So again, having other people reflect, hey, that's awesome. Can you tell me more about how you did that? And what was that process for you? And it does start to boost your confidence a little bit if you've been kind of down on yourself and you're just maybe worn down, maybe a little burned out. Talking to other people and reflecting your work, I think, can be really helpful.
I was like, I just want to plus one that, like, getting an objective third party to reflect back to you what you've done is very powerful, because sometimes we can't see the water we're swimming in, right? Like, I'm sure there's fish in the ocean who are just like, yeah, this is just my home. But we look at it and we're like, wow, look at this vast, amazing thing, right? It's the same thing. It's also the concept of you can't read the bottle, you can't read your own bottle, right? Like you're in the bottle, there's a label. You can't see that label, but other people can. And so let them see you and let them reflect that back to you. But the key to that is to believe them when they tell you, which is also not an easy part, but just do your best to like take that in and receive it. I'm also not the best self-promoter. It's something that I had to grow into and start to do, and just start doing it. It gets easier. It gets easier and easier. It's a skill. It's not like some people were just born being self-promoters and some people aren't. It's just that some have more practice than others. And so the more practice you get, the better you'll be at it. And just want to say this, like, it's not your job to say no to you. Somebody gets paid a lot of money, probably more than you, to say no to you. So let them do their job. Put yourself out there, ask for the thing, ask for the opportunity, make them do their job, right? Their job is to say no, but they also could say yes. So like, keep that in mind too.
That's
I love
awesome.
that.
I do too. That's great. I've not heard that before.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, don't say no to yourself, right? Let other people say it to you, and they're probably going to say yes more often than you would have guessed. So give it a shot. We have just crossed the halfway point here, folks, and so we're going to keep going with one more question here, and then we're going to get to our audience Q&A. But just wanted to flag here, we love gathering feedback about our programming, and would love, if you're joining us live, if you could fill out our survey, let us know how we're doing. So check out the QR code or the link that we'll send through the comments here if you'd like to fill out our survey. We truly appreciate it. We use it to inform our future programming as well. So last question here before we dive into audience Q&A. I'm sure we have folks who are here who are currently in the hustle of job searching while working, right? So we know that the job search takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. If we look at research, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said that it took the average unemployed person about 5 months to find a job in 2024. And of course, the length of a job search depends on a ton of different factors. And it can certainly take longer than that if you're managing working and job searching simultaneously. You have a lot on your plate. We at Indeed do try to work to make the job search as easy as possible. I'm going to just really kind of echo what we were saying before of keeping your resume up to date as a great way to, advance your job search, passively over time, if you will. If you're more actively searching, we highly recommend that you also update your Indeed profile with the skills that you're gaining over time so that the jobs that you're seeing and the opportunities that you're hearing about are more aligned with, what you've been doing recently. And if you want to learn more about building out your Indeed profile, going to share the link to our Indeed Bootcamp coming up next Thursday, so you can learn how to do this as a great next step to kind of check off in your job search checklist. But some more advice for working job seekers. Holly, Nicole, what are your tips for managing this hustle of the job search alongside of working?
So job searching, we know job searching is hard. It sucks. Like it's really, really difficult. And if you have a full-time job and you're job searching on top of that, that's basically like two full-time jobs. So some of the things that we mentioned before might be difficult to juggle in there as well, because I know we talked about like getting involved and working cross-functionally and doing, taking additional courses and upskilling. That can be really tough to try to do all of those things at the same time, and burnout is real. And so if you are in this position right now where you have a full-time job and you are job searching, do what you need to do to take care of yourself and to break those things up, because that can be really demoralizing, especially if you're in a position or you're in a job that you just don't like for whatever reason, and then job searching on top of that. Because as we know, when we're job searching, it's almost all no's. You're just getting rejected until you finally get a yes, or until you get a yes that you're pleased with. So I would say, first of all, really do what you need to do to take care of yourself, whatever that self-care looks like. But take breaks. And talk with your friends, go vent, treat yourself, again, whatever that looks like for you, because that's hard. So take good care of yourself in that process. Another thing to think about a little bit more strategic wise is, if you are job searching and you don't want your current company to know, think about how you're going about that job search. If you have like a little banner saying like open to work and other people can see that, or if someone is like contacting references and they contact your manager and your manager didn't know that you were job searching. So again, it depends on your particular situation. If your manager knows that you're searching and they're supportive, then great. So just some things to think about there, and maybe use a different device other than your work device if you're searching. So just be a little bit cautious with things like social media and things of that sort. So I think that's a couple of little things to think about while you are managing both your current job and job searching.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Now I have Parks and Rec in my head. Treat yourself. That's like happening. But I will say this, like, well, you should always be job searching. Let's be honest. You should always have your eye out for great opportunities, even if you love your job and you think it's amazing. If you stay prepared, stay ready, you don't have to get ready kind of feeling about that. That's just my personal approach to it, because you never know when great opportunities will show up and you never know where they'll come from. Mm-hmm. So just know that. So in some sense, we're always in a parallel work situation and job search situation, just kind of like how we turn the dial. Are we on a 10? Are we on a 5? Are we just in a warm setting, right? But for this, I want to go back to where we started with like mindset. Because some people will say, oh, job hunting is a numbers game. And I like to think of it more as an endurance sport. The point is to stay in it until you reach your goal, right? And so to stay in it, more so than anything else, it's a lot of what Holly talked about, which is like giving yourself proper rest, being kind and compassionate to yourself. That's the foundation of just living well in general. And it applies here too. But there's also like just some mindset things that you can think about. First and foremost, if you're actively searching, know that this could take time. Like this could take a lot of time. We talked about it before, but it's worth stressing again. It's like having that patience and knowing that anywhere from like 5 weeks to a full year could be the case. And just know that that's part of the process. Nothing has gone wrong. And your job is to stay in the process. No's and rejection are going to come. And you can't maybe you could take a day off because you got rejected, but you still have other things you need to do. So just being able to accept that a no, though it feels personal, it really isn't. Having been a hiring manager on multiple occasions, we just have to make the decisions that are best for us. And we make decisions based on what we know. And we may not know certain things about you or the other candidate. They just made the decision that was best for them, and do your best not to take that personally. Again, using the feedback, we talked about that. If you're getting feedback in this process, don't just use the feedback to fuel your job search. You can use that feedback to work on the job that you have right now. Like everything is applicable if you decide to make it as such. And then of course, like maintaining that patience and hope. Don't give up hope. There's something out there with your name on it. And what's for you will not pass you. I know that for sure. I'm living proof of it. I could spend the rest of this webinar telling you stories about it. So just trust me. What's for you is for you, and it will not pass you. And I think something that I say a lot and applies here as well, and I'll leave with this, is that your life is bigger than work. And I think this is what Holly was touching on too. Your life is bigger than work, and it's certainly bigger than a job search, right? So make sure you have a big and full life. Continue to do the things that bring you joy. Continue to find new things that bring you joy. Continue to connect with friends and family. What job you have, what job you don't have is not going to make or break who you are. And most people who remember you, they're not going to remember you for what you did between working hours. They're going to remember you for who you are. So really spend time and think through that, and think through, are you being kind to yourself? Are you giving yourself enough credit? And make sure that that's a part of your strategy as well.
High five on that, 100%.
Yes. Thrive Five. What an incredible piece of advice, and really just again coming back to that mindset for us to really kind of sit with and digest, right? What you do outside of work, what you do outside of the job search has so much more value and can really again give you that spark that you need to thrive and to move forward in the direction that you want to go. So I would love to kind of pivot to some of our audience questions because I know we've gotten some really amazing ones here in the comments. Thank you already to both of you for everything that you've added to our discussion so far. Clint, do we have a question on deck that we could jump to here? Awesome. Thank you, Jenny, for adding your question. What are y'all's thoughts on exploring new career options, even if you feel pretty content at your current job, but just have that desire for something new? Great question.
I was gonna say, Nicole was already talking about that, so like, go for it.
Oh yeah, well I can pop in here. No problem.
Yes.
Listen,
because you had mentioned that, like,
yeah, no, this is exactly it. I think we're always on some level, like I said, looking for a new job. And Jenny, you know what? This is great. Like, you're content at your job. You can be grateful and still want more. I think that's just a really good life kind of philosophy. You can love what you have and still be curious about what else there is. So that's perfectly fine. And just remember that it's a basic human need to want variety, to want something novel. So yeah, if you want to try something new, do that. I would say if you're content at your job, then this probably wouldn't be necessarily an active, visible search. You may not want everybody at your company to know that this is something you're looking for. But yeah, go ahead and explore your interests. And let me say this, when you're in a job, it's a much safer job search, right? You can kind of go for something that's a little different, or explore a little bit more, or take more risk because you have the security, or as much security as a job can give you. That's a whole different webinar and a different day, Bridget. But you have the safety net, let's call it. You have the safety net of having an existing job. So yeah, go and explore. I mean, basic human need met there. And if you have that desire, it's for a reason. So I would say follow it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, this is kind of the situation that I'm finding myself in as well at this point. And so like, I like my job. I like the team that I'm on. I got a great manager. But I think we're happiest when we're working towards something, like when we have a goal that's challenging us. And so I completely agree with Nicole. You're in a really sweet spot right now. So it's kind of easy to just keep your options open, stay ready, make sure that your resume is ready, because if a really good opportunity appears, then you're ready. And if you go for it, you're the one who gets to make the choices there. So it's just like, if they offer you the job, then you get to decide, do I want that over what I currently have? So you're in an excellent spot. So I completely agree. Go explore, see what's out there, see what gets you excited about what could possibly be next.
Love that. And we've talked a lot about the job title and what you're doing on a day-to-day in the organization that you work for. But there's so much more tied in with the work that we do, including things like your commute time or your hours or your vacation time or other benefits that when you're looking at jobs more holistically and kind of zooming out on it, if you're feeling this gut reaction that there could be something out there that's better and different, heed that call, right? You could always decide, like Holly said in the last moment, you know what, I'm actually happy where I am. And if that exercise makes you happier with where you currently are, all the better. We love to hear that too.
Yeah. Sometimes you find
awesome.
like when you start looking, like you're like, what I got, not so bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know we have a couple more questions out there. Clint, what's next for us? All right, Francis has a question here. Francis is coming out of retirement and going back into teaching, looking to move into administrative positions, suggestions. So, kind of zooming out on this question here, thinking about this process of going back to the job search from a period away from work. It could be retirement, it could be taking a personal leave, it could be family leave, it could be a layoff, right? Any suggestions for kind of how to get back in there after a period away from work?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll jump in
No,
just
hop in
because
there. Yeah.
I was gonna say, for instance, since a former teacher myself,
Yes.
and so again, yeah, shout out to all the teachers out there. So are looking to go back into teaching in an administrative role, and so I would be curious to know a little bit like your former school district, if you want to go back to that particular district, or you're like, nope, I want to stay away from that, or I want to get into. And also also as a teacher, you have so many skills.
True.
And I think a lot of us, whatever our role might be, we get kind of these blinders on of I can only do this, like I am
Mm,
this, like I am a project manager or I am whatever. Taking those blinders off, you have so many transferable skills and things that really opens up a world for you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be going back into teaching unless that's something that you really want to do. Again, I would explore your why. What is it that why do you want to go back to that particular industry? Are you open to other industries? And again, I would really focus in again on the why and then what's most important to you, and don't pigeonhole yourself into one industry because that could be closing you off to a lot of opportunities.
mhm.
That's a really good point, Holly. Like keeping things broad because teachers, God bless them, they do some of the most important work in the world. And coming out of retirement, that's interesting. So, like the fact that you are willing to go back and that you at least loved what you did enough to want to do it again, that says a lot. I
Mhm.
know people who have moved from teaching into administrative roles, family members. And what I can tell you is you're probably already doing a lot of the work just by a different name or shaped in a different fashion. So you have this great, robust experience. And now all you're doing is stepping to the other side of it, right? So you've already seen one end of it because you have performed on the back end of administrative decisions. Now you're just moving to the front end of administrative decisions. So definitely don't discount. I don't know that you are because that's not included in the question, but definitely don't discount what you're bringing to the situation because you probably know a lot more than you think you do. Zooming out, just in general. So if you were in an ecosystem, like an education ecosystem, and you want to move from one role to another role, so you're moving from a classroom role to an administrative office role. What I would say for anyone who finds themselves in this position is talk to people who had those roles. Seek out other people who have done the other side of the job and understand what their day to day is, and then map what you do to those activities. So then that way, when you do get into a situation where you're applying, that you're very clear on telling the story on how your experience matches what they're looking for. And then know that you have a very unique, like Bridget was speaking to earlier, you have a very unique perspective because you're already an insider and how that is actually helpful in this realm, not a hindrance and not unhelpful. Because typically when people are looking to hire, they want to pick the safest choice. They want to pick the known quantity, the thing they feel most comfortable with. While that sometimes works in their favor, sometimes it can work against, but it's just human nature. They're going to pick the safest bet. So your job is to make someone feel secure in that decision. And I think you could absolutely do that by mirroring and tying in what you've already done to what you want to do post retirement. But I think it's very admirable that you want to go back into education after already retiring.
One other thing, just a very quick note on there too, because sometimes coming out of retirement, some people don't want to work full time. So I would also check on the options of working part time if that's what you're interested in. Maybe you want to work full time. I don't know. But again, looking at your options if that's something that you want to do, coming out of retirement.
Absolutely. And just jumping in to say, former Teachers Club right here as well. All the skills you bring to the table. Francis, we're excited to see where you land. We also have a webinar from the Job Search Academy that's specifically around, later stages of your career and the strategy and mindset that goes into that. So we'll share that through the comments if that's helpful as well. We will cover one last question here before we wrap. Clint, what do we have on deck? All right. So, Paul here talking about career changes. Should I just jump into the change or should I approach this by learning slowly on YouTube, homework at the local library? We touched on this idea of upskilling a little bit earlier. How do we approach this idea of upskilling? Is it an either an or? Is it an and? What can that look like?
I think I'll jump in here
Yeah.
since we're talking about jumping. Um, it depends, right? Like I stand firm, and there's no one right way to do anything. There really isn't. There's no one right way. It's the way that's right for you. So if you want to give it a shot without the upskilling, without doing any background work, because it's something that you feel that you can do already, give it a shot, right? The worst that can happen is that you don't get the outcome that you want, in which case you will then say, okay, what am I missing? And then you'll go back and fill the gaps. Or you could spend some time researching in advance, like where am I jumping to? What gaps do I believe I have? Try to fill those and then go after it. It really just depends on your personality type. The only thing I would say is like, so it's a spectrum, right? It's the total jump. And then there's the total, like I get immersed so much in learning that I never take action. Right. And I think being on either end, either far end of the spectrum is not necessarily the best, but you want to find somewhere in between that works for you. So having the knowledge of where you're going, having the knowledge of what they're looking for, accurately assessing whether you fit that or not. And if you feel like you have enough, 60% ish jump, right? If you feel like, no, I'm not quite there yet, I need proper training, or I need at least I need at least the language of this industry that I'm going into, the bare minimum, then you may want to do some upskilling. But there is danger. Like, I look at this question and some people would be like, oh no, don't jump too soon. I'm like, give it a shot. What do you know? Just know that like sometimes if you jump too soon and you're not prepared, you may not have that, you may not be able to go to that specific opportunity again. So be thoughtful. But I think the other end is equally as dangerous, to be like, oh, I am not prepared. I need to go get another certificate. I need to go get another degree. I need to go get another, and another. And you never actually take the risk or actually make a intentional try. So I would just say to anybody, find your sweet spot. And if you're challenged with finding your sweet spot, that's what wonderful like career coaches, people who help with job search and transitions can do. Other coaches like me, executive and life coaches, people, your mentors, people in recruiters, HR departments, those people can help kind of guide you on what's best for you.
Absolutely.
I'd say I completely agree with all of that because it so much depends on you, and it either way can be a little bit dangerous if you go too far one way or the other. I'll say from my own personal experience, getting into the role that I currently have at Indeed, I did not feel qualified for. I looked at the job description and I was like, I got some of that, but some of that I don't even know what that is. And so I did some googling and trying to figure out like, okay, I can probably learn that. Like some of those skills, those hard skills, I was like, I can probably learn that on the job, or I can do a little research now and see what I can figure out about it. And I went for it anyway. I was just like, worst they can say is no. And went through it, ended up having a really great connection with the team and everything. And I was like, okay, well, this ended up being an amazing fit. And I could have missed out on it if I hadn't said, well, no, let me give it a try. I'll try. So I'm really glad that I did, because I have learned so much and I was able to learn that much. And so going back to what Nicole had said earlier about being curious, I think that is a really great driving factor as well. So, and that can serve you for both of these in acquiring new skills and going for a role that might be a little bit of a stretch. So, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, we're so glad you did too, Holly, that you took that leap. Um, I know we're getting to the top of the hour, so Nicole and Holly, just want to thank you again so much for your time today, for sharing your advice, your expertise. For our live audience, please share some love for our panelists into the comments today, and feel free to share some of your takeaways from the webinar. Also, we appreciate you both so much. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And folks, if you're joining us live and you haven't already, please let you know what you thought of today's program by sharing your feedback through our survey using the QR code on the screen and the link in the comments. If you want to dig deeper into the topics discussed today, make sure to review the downloadable handout. We have a lot more resources to check out on this topic. And as we mentioned, The recording of this webinar will be available on the LinkedIn and YouTube live pages in the coming, and will be on our website, the Job Search Academy website, in the coming week as well. Before we hop off here, I want to share what's coming up next from the Job Search Academy. If you would like to join and continue learning with us, next week, as I mentioned, we have our Indeed Bootcamp, where you can learn how to maximize your success on the Indeed platform for your job search, and learn the tools and resources that we provide to help you find better work. We're dropping links for that in the comments. And next, on April 7th, I'm going to be joined by Indeed career strategist Marianne Matarese for a live Q&A to answer all of your pressing job search and career questions. If we didn't get to your question today and you joined us live, apologies. Please do join us on the 7th. We'll have lots more time for Q&A there. April 17th, Indeed career strategist Matt Burnt is going to lead a panel discussion on how to set yourself up for success, avoid career limiting decisions, and employ effective communication strategies in our multi-generational world of work at this From Zoomers to Boomers program that I am really looking forward to. Dropping the link to RSVP for that on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. And to stay up to date on future Job Search Academy webinars, as we mentioned, you can visit our website and also sign up for our mailing list by clicking the Get Updates button on the Job Search Academy homepage, or catching the QR code here on the screen. Thank you again so much for joining us today. We hope to see you again on a future Indeed Job Search Academy webinar. Be well.